today's session is one of a way to show you what are the real things happening into front end. So our today's session is building a photo gallery app in React. It's our speaker for today is Rohan Almeida. Now, Rohan works as a contract software developer. He has more than 15 years of experience into full stack web development. So he has particularly tremendous stories to share of how exactly his journey has been and how it can basically change a few careers as well. Now, he has authored 2 video courses, one on React and another on regular expressions, which makes him a fabulous author. And he enjoys teaching and mentoring fellow colleagues and has been using Linux for about 19 years now. And he is a Linux advocate for all things software development and large-scale application deployment. Now, he enjoys programming in Elixir, JavaScript, Python, and is learning Rust as well. So I am I'm sure Rohan has a lot to share and he's going to have a wonderful session. Please, giving it to you, Rohan, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Varsha. So I hope everyone can hear me.
Rohan, I've put you on mute, unmuted you, yeah.
Yeah. So I hope everyone can hear me. Let me confirm that, please. Can you please respond in the chat that you can hear me? Oh, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, hi everyone. So let me start by, I'll share my screen right away, okay? Okay, so, okay. All right. Okay, I have another confirmation that you can see my screen. Okay, that's nice. In case you think that the audio or the video at any moment is not up to the mark, I would request you to just put a short note in the chat and I can probably correct that. So yeah, hold on. I'm just going to, yeah, please hold. Can you hold on? Yes, so at any time, if you feel that the audio is not up to the mark, please immediately put a message in the chat and I will look into it. So what we're going to do in this session is we're going to build a photo gallery in React. You can see the ability of the app is to upload photos, multiple photos at a time. You can view the photos as a gallery view. You can view individual photos with backward navigation, as well as you can delete photos and multiple delete photos. So it's basically a kind of a photo management application. You know, it is simple, but by the time you look at the code, I'm sure you'll be aware of how much work goes into it. But don't worry, it's not that difficult. I'm there. So before that, I'll probably just tell you a little about me. So I have more than 15 years of experience. I started with Perl, doing HTML, a lot of JavaScript. That was plain JavaScript. There was not even jQuery at that time. You know, it was just JavaScript. And if you can believe me, there was not even console.log. So, you know, almost all the debugging was done using alert statements. But we have come a long way from then, and I currently really enjoy doing web development, full stack. So I also do a lot of backend work in Python and Elixir, a lot of work on the SQL and database side. Also a lot of Linux DevOps, that is installing and configuring your web servers and your Nginx application servers. And as Varsha said, I've authored 2 video courses. These are hands-on video courses where I actually code during the video courses. So one was on Webpack. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of Webpack, but it's kind of a module bundler, and I did it using React. You can use Webpack with other frameworks too. It's a standalone module bundler. And I also did a video course on learning regular expressions in Python. So that was some very good experience. All right, so I think let's start with the course. So I'll probably start with the prerequisites. So I assume you guys know JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. You definitely should know JavaScript. Maybe some familiarity with React, but it's okay if you don't. But it's good if you have read, you're curious, you're eager to learn, and you have read some tutorials or something about React, and you know what components and what is state and props. And you need a code editor, not right now, but there's nothing stopping you from opening a code editor right now. And of course, you need a browser to view your application. What are you going to learn? You're going to learn about Webpack. You're going to learn about the Webpack loaders. While the React application, you also need to take care about architecture. How are you going to organize your components and your views and your styles? So the structure. I also mean structure in terms of the folder structure, the way you organize your folders and files. Then we're going to take a look at how you can upload images using the FileReader API. Using the FileReader API is wonderful because you can create those. If you have seen many of these sites which give you the ability to upload files, you can see that they give you a progress bar, right? If you're familiar with HTML, then it's and progress bar, how much of the file is uploaded. Using the FileReader API, you can provide a progress bar. Unfortunately, the progress bar is not there in this application, but I hope you take it further from your end. We'll be using local storage right now for storing the files. Eventually, a proper application would use a backend API to store the photos, and we'll take a look at some CSS too. All right, so this is what we're going to go through. And in between, we'll probably take a break of maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Maybe have a glass of water in between if you want. One sec, hold on. I'm just increasing the size of the window. So I'm just trying to make sure that the screen is a proper size. So I'll just confirm, guys and ladies, are you able to view the screen properly? Okay, great. I'll continue. So this is the session points. We'll first have a look at the app. I've named it Photon. We'll see how to install a React and Webpack. Point 2 is beautiful, because we are not going to use create React app. I repeat, we are not going to use it. If you've heard of create React app, it gives you a very kind of handy tool to immediately build a application. But I personally don't like it because it creates plenty of files and somehow I don't feel I'm in control. So I'm going to show you how to install React and Webpack from scratch. So you're in control of all the configuration. Then I'll show you what Webpack is, what Webpack loaders. Then we'll get into the architecture of the React app. We'll look at how to upload files, and we'll take a look at local storage and grid, CSS Grid. Okay, let's take a look at the app demo. So I'll go to my console and let me start my app. Oops. So I've started the Webpack dev server, and okay, this is my browser window, and I'm going to go to localhost 8080, and this is our, you can see the photo gallery. You can see, you can click on an image and view it in full size. These are obviously thumbnails, and I've selected these images from unsplash.com. Unsplash.com gives you a lot of free images to use. I've purposely reduced the resolution of the images because I don't want to use too heavy. So you can go forward, you can go back, you can close, and there's also a delete button per image. So if I just want to delete one image, I can do this. Okay, you can keep on deleting, and there's also a multiple select and delete, and there's a select all, deselect all for if you want to delete multiple photos. I'll cancel, and I'll probably show you how to upload files. So I've downloaded some images from Unsplash. Yes, one file. All right, and you can also upload multiple files. Okay. Right, so you can see that's great, uploading multi-files, but remember there's no indication, there is no progress bar. But using the FileReader API, you can do some pretty cool stuff. So for now, again, a demo, I can probably delete these duplicates. Yeah, the smiley. So I'll just delete this. So great, delete works. So I hope you liked that, and now we need to get the real stuff, the code. Yeah, so we've got your demo. So as I said, the second part is we're going to install React and Webpack. These are the commands you need to run in your console. I'm going to do it right now. I hope it doesn't take too much time, but there's not much to it. So I'm just go to my console. This is commands I need to run. This is how I started the application. If it takes too much time, I'll probably skip this part, but let me. So I'm going to say Photon new, right? I'm going to go to this directory. I hope the font size of the console, font size of my terminal is good. In case you want me to increase the font size, please let me know. And we need to use the NPM tool. I'm sure you're aware of Node, and NPM is a Node package module. So we can use NPM init to start a new project. I'm just going to use the defaults, right? And what this does, it creates package.json. Then I will install the Webpack modules. This is what I require. Just going to copy this. So I've got Webpack installed inside node modules directory. Oh, wow, that's a lot of modules. Great. And now we need to install our React modules. So you know what, I'm going to skip this part because you will have this code and everything will be put on GitHub. You'll be able to see the code later, but the idea is simple. You're installing Webpack, you're installing React, and then we come to something called as Webpack loaders. Right? So next, after we install our node modules, well, Webpack. Let's take a look at what is Webpack. So the idea is that Webpack is a module bundler. It takes your assets, which are your source files. It can be JSX. JSX is a React extension to JavaScript. It can also bundle JS, that is JavaScript, and JavaScript ES6 onwards also. That is, you can have your fat arrow functions and arguments and whatever advanced features with JavaScript ES6 and ES7 also gives you. You can bundle plain CSS or you can bundle Sass. So Webpack can do all of this, and it then finally gives you a single bundle of JS file. That is the main job of Webpack. How does it do it? It does it through loaders. So the idea is that for each file, Webpack will use a different loader. In this project, we are going to use Babel and Sass loader and other style loaders for SCSS as CSS. Let's go. So I've created a directory called Photon1, and I'm going to take you to the code. So I'm right now going to open Photon1. This is my package.json. Package.json will be automatically updated when you do npm install. You can see that I've installed the Webpack modules, the React modules, and the other loaders, Babel core, right? Now let's look at the Webpack config. This is the main config file for Webpack. So this is simple. I'll explain it quickly. The idea is that Webpack requires an entry point. So you can see the entry point is defined in the config file. From there, everything picks up. Using import, Webpack then builds the dependency graph of all your assets. That dependencies can be JSX, JS, SCSS, CSS. It can even be images, text files, JSON. If you look at Webpack loaders, you can write your own loaders. So you can even load JSON files. And using Webpack, you can convert JSON into a table. This is all done in the front end. So once the entry point is defined, Webpack builds the dependency graph, compiles all the modules, and outputs a single bundle. You know, later on, we can have a proper session on Webpack, and you can also build multiple bundles. If your bundle gets different applications too huge, your bundle size is going to be huge. Webpack gives you the opportunity to split your bundles and also load bundles on demand. So if you've understood that my entry point is src index.js, let's take a look at that. So in src, I have index.jsx. It's empty. So I'll go to my console and let me start. Also, if you look at package.json, you can see the npm run start command, which is Webpack dev server. So my index.jsx is empty. This is my entry point. Let me confirm this. So I have empty. I'm going to do npm run start. What do you think is going to happen? Well, the server started. Let me go to the browser and I'll now load. It's listening on port 8080. That's nice, right? No error, at least. Let me look at the developer console. I'm using Chrome, by the way. You can use Firefox too. I actually prefer Firefox, but for this session, I would like to use Chrome. So I've opened the developer tools and the application. Now what I'm going to do is Webpack dev server enables auto reloading of your application when the source file changes. So I'm going to put something over here. I'm going to write console.log, right? I'm going to save this. Oh, wow. So you can see just on saving the file, you've got a console.log, right? Now, if you find this a bit too much, that's okay, because if you had used create a React app, all this would have been done automatically. But the idea, what I'm trying to get across, is the use of Webpack. I've still not got into React. I'm still using Webpack, and if you still want to use jQuery, there's nothing stopping you. I can do import jQuery. For example, I can go to I can do npm install -- save jQuery. I'm just going to show you what Webpack is capable of. So I've installed jQuery version 3.4. That's old, I think. Okay, no problem. And I'm going to say import $ from jQuery, right? And let this log, I'm going to let it be. And I'm going to say, if you see my index.html, I've already included Bootstrap, the CSS for some CSS, and I'm going to use Font Awesome for some icons. And you can see I have called a div ID root. So I'm going to get to that. HTML, let's say hello world HTML. I'm going to put some HTML in the browser. Let me save this and reload. Oh, sorry, I've not started the server. Started the Webpack server and reload. Okay, so hold on, just okay. I'm sorry. So okay, ID hash. I need to get to the ID, and yeah, we've got this right. And you can see the live reloading happening. I'm gonna just change, remove. I'll probably just add an exclamation mark, save the file, and it's auto reloaded. Great. So I hope that sort of makes it clear what Webpack is capable of. You can see in builds bundle.js. This is what Webpack has built out of our very simple hello world. That's one of the fallbacks of Webpack. The bundle size is huge. Initially, it is huge, but after you build your application, the size, the incremental size is minimal. Now let's get to some React. So if you're familiar with React, React uses JSX. There's then you can also not use JSX, but it's highly recommended that you use JSX. Now to load JSX, you need the Babel loader. We have already installed Babel loader, and there's another very important file to configure. It's called .babelrc. You can see this tells Babel to transpile. Babel is a transpiler. Transpile your React JSX and JS files, and this can handle your JavaScript ES6 onwards. So I assume I have React. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say import React from React, right? I'm going to say import React DOM. I keep forgetting this. I'm just going to take a, I don't want Google, but I'm just going to take a look at some previous codes or the ideas. Okay, gotta do this. Yeah, I'm just going to copy this. Gonna put this into my index.js. So I've imported React, and need to extend the component class. So the way React works is the idea of components. A component can be as small as a button or as large as an entire form. Later on during the architecture, I'll show you what is the difference between containers and components. Eventually, everything is a React component. But from an architecture, from a high level perspective, it's good to think of them as containers. Containers which contain the logic of your application, and components which are representational, which are, they say, as dumb components. They only deal with the presentational aspect of your application. They can handle events, they can listen to mouse events as keyboard events, but they will not have any business logic. They will pass all the logic to their parent containers. And with React, you can have nested components. You can have containers inside containers and so on. So it's important that you understand how a component works. So what you do is you first need to create an app. So since I'm inside 4, I'm going to delete all this. I'm just going to delete all this. This is from the full application, but I don't require it for now. Sorry, I should have deleted this earlier, but let me do it now. My render is going to be very small. I don't want a lot of stuff here. Delete this. So what I've done is I'm only focusing on app.js and index.js. Let's forget about index.js. But the idea is that you're going to import app from app.jsx. And what is an app.jsx? This is our top level component, but for simplicity, just think of it as another React component. The name of this component is app. I've got a constructor. Props are passed down to each component. I can access them with props, and each component requires a render method. Render returns the actual HTML, render will return the actual HTML, which is then displayed. So I've got a header. Let me display hello world. So now you can see we have gone from using jQuery to using React. And I need to export the namespace app, right? So have a look at this component again, and it's pretty simple. You need to import React, and you need to create a class. This name can be anything you want. Since it's my top level component, I'm calling it app. I'm extending react.component. There's a constructor which is not doing anything at the moment, and there's a render method which is required. Render is what is automatically called when the state of your component changes. Render is called each time, and it then returns this to the browser. Now, since I have my app component ready, I'll go to my index.jsx. Remember, index.jsx is my entry point for Webpack, and I've imported app. So what am I going to do? I need to do a full render, which means I'll just have to copy some code again. Yeah, this is what I required. Just going to copy this. And let me paste this here. Okay. So this is what is required. You need to import React, React DOM, and your custom app component. Remember, all paths are relative to the current directory. So app.jsx is the current directory. And I'm going to call React DOM.render, which takes two parameters, JSX, and the element, which is root. So obviously that is because in your index.html, you're telling React to put the entire application inside this div, which has an ID of root. So let me not use app. Let me comment this, and I'm going to do something like this. Right? I'm going to save this. Okay, I've got some errors. Let me just check. Google console. Let me start npm. Oh, wow. So I hope. So the idea is that, okay, everything is fine, but I don't have my loader, right? So let me go to Webpack. I need to enable the Babel loader. Babel will enable Webpack to transpile this JSX and convert it to JavaScript, which the browser can understand. So I'll go to Webpack. You see, I don't have any loaders here. So now we'll get to loaders, right? Cool. So what I need is I need a JSX loader. So I'm gonna, okay, I'll just take a I'm copy some stuff from the application, and you can see the idea is that we need this. Okay, so I'll enhance the Webpack config. I'm gonna say, sorry. Right. So I've told Webpack, I've put in some rules. So I've told Webpack, if you find any JS, if this is a regular expression, if you find any JS or JSX files extension inside the src directory, use Babel loader. Let's come to SCSS a bit later. I just want the app to load the JSX. So now I've enhanced the Webpack config. So we still have our entry point, and I'm telling Webpack to put the output in www/builds-bundle.js, and this is the rule for Babel loader. Let's start the Webpack dev server. Okay, no errors. That's nice. And okay, so we've got our hello world. And if I will just view the source, you can see that I have Bootstrap included. I have Font Awesome. That's nice. And this is the bundle which Webpack has built. This time, this bundle actually includes React. But we'd like the app component. We have built this component to do the great job of hello world. Wow. Anyways, so instead of this, what we'll do is we'll import our app. And we'll call app. Right? And great, this works. Of course, you can confirm it by going to app.jsx and saying hello React world, and you can see the auto reload working. All right, everyone. I thought I'll just have a quick break. What we have done right now is we've had a look at Webpack. We've had a look at Webpack loaders and how to use, how to install React and Webpack from scratch, and how to create a very small React component. From now, we'll jump directly into the Photon, the photo gallery app, which is going to be a bit heavy. So at this point, we will have a Q&A later. But at this point, if anyone has any questions, you can put it in the chat. And if it's very small, I'll respond right away, or I'll keep it for the end. So any feedback, please respond in the chat. Is everyone able to understand what's been shown so far? Yes, a super constructor is how you would receive the props. Props are properties. For example, React. There are two concepts in React which you need to understand: is props and state. So I would actually have liked to show this in the Photon application, but the idea is that props are basically parameters you can pass. So if you go to index.jsx, if you can see app over here, if I would like to pass some arguments, its app is like, think of app like a function. You know, under the hood, actually, every React component is actually a function. So you're actually going to pass some parameters. I'm going to say app name. I'm going to pass some name. I'm going to pass my name. Okay. So this is a parameter. It's think of it as, you know, HTML attribute. But since this is JSX, this actually becomes a property, a prop, which is passed to the app component. This is in the constructor is where you will actually receive. So what we can do is I'll log this. I'm not very confident of what super does, but the idea is that this is a template. This is a boilerplate which I use every time. So when you build a hierarchy of components, you want to make sure that the properties are passed back to the parents. So I'm not very confident of super props, but I can tell you what props does. So if you do console.log props, and I'll just save this, and you will see that in the dev tools, okay, I didn't save this file, I'm sorry. Okay, so you can see when you reload the app, the property has been passed, name Rohan. If you can increase the font size, yeah. So you can see the property being passed, name, and I access this as prop. I'm going to say, so I'm going to use some ES6, which is template literals. So using a backslash for strings. So I'm going to say property name equal to, it was dollar, right? So I'm going to say props dot name. Let me just log this and save it. Yes, it says property name Rohan, right? So using parameters, using props to your components, and this props argument and the constructor, this is how you can access your properties which are passed to components. And the other concept of state is very simple. The moment state changes, so you can put it in state, right? I have my state. I'm sure if you read about React, after you view this session, if you go to the basics, which is available on the web, you'll very easily able to find what props and state is. The idea is when state changes, this method is called a game, which tells the component, please refresh your view. And you can change state at the click of a button also. So let's go into the code. A quick look at the architecture. You'll see that it's a good idea to components and containers. So in this case, I have my header container, and every image is displayed over here. Okay, so let me go to the full application. I'll first open this. Let me open the full application. So I have Photon. I can open it in code, Visual Studio Code. So you can see I have a hierarchy. You can see that you have source code, and I've created two directories called components and containers. The idea is that containers are top level components. they can contain components. It can be nested. Containers deal with logic. Why is header a container? A header is container because usually in your application, a header can sometimes contain the menu bar, the navigation bar. It can contain the login, logout buttons, and sort of greetings. So you can put all that as components and include that in the header container. And we have an image holder, upload holder. So I'll just go to the application in the browser. I'll start my application first. So I'm going to go to our application over here. I'm going to start it. Okay, and wow, so this is our application. So, and so you can see the components, right? So you have an app, you have a header, you have an image holder, and then the actual image view component. Why a holder? Why is it a container? Because this container also gives us the ability to display the delete icon. So the image holder contains the logic to enable deletion of an image. The image view is a dumb component. It only deals with display of the image. Now, when I view an image, you can see I'm using the image viewer component because this contains other HTML to enable navigation. So we can see the image viewer. Well, actually, I'll admit to that, image viewer should have actually been a container, but because it contains logic for navigating images. But for now, we'll let that pass. But the idea is that image viewer contains a lot of code. So this ideally should have been a container. So we could reuse a lot of the navigation components. And inside app, I've also included the logic to select multiple images and delete them. This is included directly inside app.js. So, this application could definitely do a lot of refactoring, but, I believe GreyAtom is going to open source this, or if it doesn't, and if you guys enroll, then you're going to get a look at all of the code, and in the future, we can do a lot of refactoring. And, refactoring code is one of the best ways to learn. So that's it. That's the basic architecture. And now let's look at how we actually upload files. So this would come in the upload holder container. Okay, before going further, I'll just take a short. You might have noticed that each container, each component is inside a directory, right? So this is my Photon source directory. You see that components contains folders. I could have just directly put the JSX file inside the components directory, but what I've done is each component itself is a folder. Why? Because it's good that you can group the JSX code and the SCSS code together. You'll see that all the components, even the header has its own CSS, and JSX. This is not required. You can put everything in a central style. we have a central app.css. So you can see styles, app.scss. I'm using Sass over here. So this is my global app styles. But if I want to style my components separately, I would do it inside the CSS of the relevant component. If you're familiar with Vue, Vue.js, which is the framework, Vue talks about single file components where the HTML, the CSS, and all the logic is included in one component. I don't believe in React. We can still do it. You still need to have separate files. So you can see that inside this image viewer.jsx, I need to import the styles in this line. I need to import it. Oops, sorry. I need to import it using this line. And using this, I can even import my global styles. Okay, so let's get back to the file uploading. You can see in uploadholder.jsx, I've created a storage library that is local storage. We'll get to that in some time. The idea is that in a constructor, we first create our storage, and we have a file select method. Render. So what is upload holder rendering? It's loading an input type file, multiple, so it can handle multiple uploads, and on change, I'm going to call file select. And the label is select files, right? So this is our upload holder. The entire application has only one upload holder. The rest, all of these are image holders, which contains an image view component. Upload holder is a container by itself, select files, and where is the input type file? If you look at the CSS, so what I've done is I've said input type file display none. I don't want to display the upload button, right? Because I'm doing my own upload. And of course, I've done a lot of CSS changes, for example, hover and pointer, color, font weight, and upload holder. The entire styling is done over here inside parallel to the upload holder JSX. So what happens on file select? When I click on select files, and when input type file changes, file select receives an event, and e.target.file is a file list object. I'll quickly go to the documentation for FileReader. So you can see the file reader lets web applications asynchronously read the contents of files. So this is great if you want to have a very beautiful file upload. You can let users upload files, show them a progress bar, and upload chunks to your backend API. You can see it has enough properties. It has the vendors on abort, on load. And what are we using? The only one we are going to use right now is so what we're going to use is a object on load. I'm going to save image. This is, I have a storage object and read as data URL. Right, so is the method. So read as data URL. This is what I call to actually read the file. Once the entire file is read, the callback of onload is, this handler is called, and I can do what I want with my data. And you can see that it has a progress. So in this way, using this handler, you can show the progress bar during uploading files. And you also get chunks from the data. Remember, you're uploading local files. You're uploading files from your hard disk to the browser. Remember, you need to do these kind of checks, because since you're uploading multiple files, we're going to loop over each file. It's a file list object that you're going to get. You're going to loop over them, and if it matches, the MIME type is image, only then we will proceed. We create for each image, we'll create a new file reader, and we will read. So this is asynchronous because this is executed only after the entire file is read. So please, when you get time, experiment with this file reader. It's pretty simple. So what next? Now we need to store our images somewhere. You know, for this application, I'm using window.local storage. I'm sure you've heard of local storage. This is a very bad idea, but since I just wanted to prototype an application, I'm going to use local storage. You know, there are other alternatives. You can use a backend API. You can use Ajax and send the data to a backend API. And there's also you can also use IndexedDB. You can use WebSQL. There's a lot of stuff you can do if you want to store the files locally, but I'm using local storage for now. And you can see I'm going to store the file data as base64 URL. So let's quickly look at my storage library, which I've created. I've created an image storage.js. We need to stringify the local storage. We cannot store binary data in local storage. We need to convert it to base64 ASCII. So this is what the constructor does. It checks if I'm storing everything in a Photon key inside window.local storage. You can see save image. This is how the images are saved to the images array. This is how you can delete images by using splice, delete multiple images. And I use json.stringify. Okay. So if you look at the FileReader API, yeah. So this, because I'm using read as data URL, I'm going to get the image as data base64. If I had used this, I would get it as binary. Since I already have it as base64, I can just stringify it and store it into local storage. So you can have a look. You can go to developer console and take a look at the data. You can see that this is the data. Oh, that's huge, right? Wow. So each image is converted into ASCII base64 with the name and the data. So this is how you can use local storage. Definitely not recommended. But it's good to understand how you can use. So what we have covered is how to upload files. And once you have your data in local storage, what we do is we need to display the uploaded photos, right? So in my application, once the page is loaded, I read local storage. I will get an array. I loop over the array, and then I create components of image holder. I create image holder components So if we go to image holder.jsx, it uses the image view component. And what does image holder do? It handles delete image. You can see how it's turned out to be. You know, in this entire application, only app.jsx is a little big. You know, that's my bad. I should have refactored that. But if you look at the other components and containers, they're very small, and that helps you to understand the code base much better. So our image holder firstly displays the image, and also on click it calls delete image, which will then call the storage object and delete it from the storage. And we then need to reload our props. This is important. We need to reload the application. So once the image is deleted, I need to change the state. So if I click on this, I change the state, so the application is reloaded. And remember, React is extremely fast. You know, it uses a virtual DOM. So although I'm modifying the DOM, this is super fast. I'm actually reloading the entire state of this app when I click on delete a single image. But wow, this is fast. Look at this. So that's great. Before we take a look at CSS Grid, let's go through app.js. This is a little huge, but I hope you. So what does app do? Our main top level component. It displays the header. Header is nothing. It's very simple. Let's quickly take a look at header. What is header doing? Great. It just displays the header, and it has a CSS, so we can put rounded borders. We can have rounded borders on our headers. So yeah. So if you can change this, I'll probably just to 8 and I'll change this to 8. Yeah, so we've got some nice rounded borders. That's all the header does, and in the future it can do much more. For now it's just displaying the header. And so then we have our image holder. Remember, image holder is going to be called for each image. I'm going to create an image holder container component. Image holder will have the image view component. There's going to be a single upload holder container. Image storage is a library. That's the great thing about Webpack. We are back to Webpack. So Webpack is not limited to React. I'm actually just loading a JavaScript file. This can be ES6, ES7. You can use all the funky things available with ES6. So image storage is just another JavaScript class. It's not a React component. And image viewer is for displaying the image and the forward and backward navigation buttons. So in the constructor, I first check for the existing image. I store it in my images. This is the state of my app. I need to track the number of images displayed. Image display is tracking whether I'm displaying the full size image. By default, it's false. Are we in select mode? What is select mode? Select mode is this. Once you click on this, select mode becomes true. Once select mode is true, I then render these extra select buttons on top of each image holder component. It's as simple as that. And obviously I've got some logic for select all and deselect all, and obviously the delete, multiple delete logic. I can cancel this, and once I cancel this, select mode is false, right? And I have a lot of methods for reloading state, close image, delete images, select all images, and select mode. So select all images will loop over all the images and put a check mark on each. So this is what select all does. It reverses the state of the checkboxes. This is how we can delete all images. This is how to select a specific image, how to select an image. Close image. Close image is actually part of this. Reload state and render. So render is the main. If you can check in render, this .images contains all my images from local storage. I loop over each image. And then depending on various flags in my state, whether the image is selected or not, I would like to display different colors. So I then either put this color or the other color. And obviously we know that in React, JSX is not a string. So although I have defined CSTR as a string, I can directly put HTML in CSTR because this is JSX. It gets compiled. This is not an HTML string. This is JSX. So I have an image holders array. Once I loop over the images, I push it to image holders. So this is how I push. This is how image holder, remember, is a container, a component which displays the image. Based on various flags, I first determine what the flags should be, and then I actually then push the image holder component into the image holders array. And finally, image display. Image display in the state is a flag which tells us what, are we in the thumbnail state or are we in the image view state? So accordingly, we need to render. So this is in the image display state, where we can go forward and backwards. This is in the thumbnail state. So based on this flag, image display, either we need to display image viewer component or we display thumbnails, which is this, the select buttons, then all the image holders over here, which I've pushed. You can see I've pushed all image holders into a list, and if we are into the thumbnail display, I will display it here along with the upload holder at the end. And everything is put into this image display. And wow, you can see the render is very simple, but actually there's a lot going on because I'm rendering the app with the header and image display. Image display is populated based on the state of the application, whether we need to display thumbnails, we need to display the select buttons for delete, or we need to display each individual image. So after all this logic is done in the render method, this is the final list. This is what is displayed at the end, and that goes into the render method. So that was app, and you can see I think we're running a little bit out of time, so I'll quickly go through Grid. So CSS Grid gives us, if you look for some documentation on display grid, you'll find that you can use columns and grow gaps. So what I can do is I can just, modify these things and show you how beautiful Grid is. So I'll just, let me upload some more images. By the way, watch out for local storage. Local storage will complain if the size is too big. So there's a limit. So let me just, okay. So now the beautiful thing about Grid, I'm sure you've heard of Flex in CSS, and CSS Grid is not new, but it's been there for quite some time, and it's amazing if you want to use float components. It really does a good job of enabling you to do some very flexible layouts. You can increase the column gap, the gap between columns. Oh, that's very small. Just going to increase it to 90 pixels. Yeah, so that's the way you can increase the row gap to say 50, and yeah, it's very flexible. So using grid gives you a great opportunity to tweak your layout. I'll just undo all of this. Okay. So this is what CSS Grid can help you with. So I'll quickly go through the summary. I think what we have learned together, and we'll have a small Q&A. So I think what you have most importantly learned is how you can create an app from scratch using npm and npm install. You can install React modules and Webpack modules. You can configure Webpack, which the concept is of an entry point, and then use Webpack loaders to build your dependencies into a single bundle file. And when creating React apps, think small. You can create components which have their own state, and then you can build bigger and bigger components. You can have nested components. You can build containers which contain logic and put components inside them. And you've seen how you can use the FileReader API to upload files, upload multiple files, and use the API to create errors or progress bars. And you can also use local storage to store data. In this application, we are storing the images as base64. Again, it's not a good idea, but it serves the purpose. So I've come to the end of this session. Thanks a lot. There will be a short Q&A. I'll just confirm with Varsha.
Sure, definitely. Actually, we started about 10 minutes a bit here and there. So you can take like a few minutes to summarize or wrap something up at the end. And we can open our Q&A as well. So we are open for another 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, Varsha. So guys, you can ask some questions. I'll be happy to answer them. I'll also show you the code again, so I hope it's clear. If you're new to React, if you're completely new to React, then it's probably going to be a lot to digest. But if you have learned about components, state, and props, hopefully this session will teach you a lot more about how to architect a single page application. So it all starts with our Webpack config. And put the output in bundle.js. And this is our Webpack loaders. So we are going to use Babel loader and style loader for the CSS and Sass files. And index.jsx, we start by rendering our app component. Our app top level app component does a lot of work. It imports the headers, the image holders, the upload holder, the storage library, and the image viewer. It uses logic. It tracks what state the application is. Are we in the state of displaying thumbnails or the full images, number of images? Are we in the select mode? So these are all flags which the app is going to track. Image storage is a plain JavaScript class which helps us deal with local storage. And we have our containers, our header, our image holder, which handles per image deletion as well as renders the image. This is again a thumbnail view. The full view is done by image view. Do some better naming. Remember, image view is only dealing with the thumbnail view, and image viewer is actually doing the full view. We can see this component for going to the previous image. This displays current image. This is the component for the right arrow for next image and the close image button. So this is our image viewer component, previous, the current image in full resolution, the go to next image, and the close button. So that's our image viewer and the class. So I'm using font awesome for the icons, and that's included in index.html. In index.html, I've literally included Bootstrap 4 and font awesome, sorry. So that's over here. I've included bootstrap.min.css and font awesome, and index.html builds bundle.js. Okay, this is a simple index.html. You can include your other CSS as well, but don't do that, because you can have your styles inside your application, not outside. You can have a global app.css. So this is where you can put all your CSS, and you can use Sass. And we also had our Photon 1, which is a very simple starter application. We created a Webpack config with only the Babel loader. We started with index.jsx. We started with, anything goes here. You can just have plain JavaScript, console.log. You can even have jQuery. You can even include vue.js. Webpack is agnostic. And we slowly introduced React. We built a small app component, constructor, and we then imported app, and we then finally render app into the root element. So this is a classic example of a small React application.
So guys, we're open for questions. Please feel free to clear any of your doubts during the session. You've been a great audience. Thank you so much. We're up for another 5 to 10 minutes if you have any questions. If not, I would really request you to go ahead and fill the form. We will collate all your feedback and send it to Rohan as well so that he knows that you really like the session. And this has made some impact and definitely would be helpful for you in your projects or your career or probably in your college. Yes, we're looking forward to doing more such sessions, but we need your feedback to understand that this is something that you're liking. And yes, I'm just waiting for any more questions. If no, then we could wrap it up. I'd like to know from you guys. Also, we'll be sharing all the material from Rohan, put it on GitHub and YouTube and hand it over to all the participants, especially to the ones who give feedback. I think, Rohan, you have a question?
Yeah, Smita, yes. Yes, React is supported by all browsers because you have to remember that what happens eventually is that Webpack transpiles the code, right? So JSX is a front-end enhancement to JavaScript. But in the end, you have to look at bundle.js. This is plain JavaScript. So yes, React is supported by all browsers. Yes, because React is transpiled into plain JavaScript. And if you take a look at bundle.js, this is what goes to the browser. You can see there is absolutely nothing React specific or what you call CSS, SCSS. So yes, React is supported in all browsers. I'm not very familiar with Angular. I did work in Angular 2 and 3 or 4. The idea is that Angular is a full-fledged framework. You know, it gives you a lot of stuff. It gives you models, controllers. So it's a little heavy. The learning curve, I would say, is a little steeper than React. React is only a UI library, it's only a user interface library. So it only deals with the stuff which you want to display in the browser. If you want to handle a database or modules or stuff, then you have to build your own, or obviously you can use a lot of modules. You can use some Node.js backend or like Express to build your models and controllers, and let React only do the UI work. So that is the basic composition. Is React is simple to learn, but using third-party modules like Redux, Mob.js, Mob.jx, and the others, slowly by using third-party modules, I believe React can be as similar to the full-fledged Angular.
Thank you, Rohan. I would like to thank you on behalf of all the audience and the entire team of GreyAtom for doing this fabulous session with us. I'm sure there is plenty to take away today. And yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Asha. And thank you, everyone.
Log on to GreyAtom's learning platform to unlock more free content. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for regular updates.